Hello, I'm Paul Pluter and welcome to Paul Pluter Prestige. Today I'd like to talk about Tag Heuer. And Tag Heuer is a brand of watch which is, it's a brand that some enthusiasts look at with disdain, whereas other people truly love the brand. And I've got to put my cards on the table and say I have been a bit critical of Tag in the past. But in the same token, I've also got to make this statement, which is there's no other brand of wristwatch which has done more for luxury watches than Tag Heuer. And what do I mean by that? Well, you think about it. For many people, their first introduction to a luxury or a prestigious watch was with Tag Heuer. And Tag Heuer itself is certainly a brand which deserves a lot of respect. And Tag has had a very interesting history. It started off with the original Heuer company, which founded a lot of interesting type of movements. They're responsible for chronographs and many innovations in the watch industry. And they had Heuer has been associated with trendy people like Steve McQueen. How much cooler does it get than Steve McQueen wearing your product? And Tag Heuer, it's like a lot of Swiss companies that went into liquidation and into a holding pattern until it came back and was revived as Tag Heuer. And Tag Heuer itself encapsulates that essence of the original Heuer watches, and it also brings it into a modern age. And whilst many purists look at the first Tag Heuers that came out in the mid-80s, like the Tag Heuer Formula 1, the 1500 series and the 2000 series, and say, there are quartz, there's a lot of shortcomings on it, you've got to realize this brand here established itself as a true luxury brand and brought people into the hobby. And it's quite an interesting thing. I was talking to a guy who was an agent for top-end cigars. We're talking Cubans, Dominicans, all top-end cigars. And he said to me, if there were not cigarette smokers, if there were no cigarettes around, the price of cigars would be astronomical. And he said, look, the cigarette smokers allow tobacco to be harvested, and the high-end tobacco goes into cigars, and the cheaper tobacco goes into cigarettes. And that's a very interesting thing. In many ways, Tag Heuer has brought people into the fold. It's made people desire a luxury watch. And once they've desired a Tag, they can then go up in the Tag range, and then they can perhaps switch to other brands like Rolex, Breitling, and even to top echelon brands like Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet. And this needs to be linked to Tag. And many people, their first exposure or really wanting a classy watch is Tag Heuer. And Tag Heuer needs to be thanked for doing this for the whole watch industry. And many people should ask themselves before they start criticizing Tag Heuer, would Patek be the company it is today if it wasn't for makers of Swiss watches like Tag Heuer? And I think the answer would be they would not be as big and prosperous as they are. Tag Heuer has brought many people into the fold. And the thing is, with many Tag Heuers, they have got some fantastic pieces there. Models like the Grand Carrera, the Monaco, the Silverstone. These are really, really top-end pieces which you could proudly have in any collection. And it's kind of a bit sad. A lot of criticism has been poked at Tag by saying, well, they use a generic movement. And Tag certainly has used some ETA movements in the past. Tag, however, is moving towards more in-house movements, but the fact still needs to be stated that a manufacturer like Tag Heuer using a quality Swiss ETA movement is committing no sin. In the 70s, when in-house really was nothing, no one had even, the snobbery associated with an in-house movement was negligible, manufacturers like Breguet used a Valjoux movement in their Type 20 chronograph. Manufacturers like Vacheron used a Jaeger-LeCoultre based movement. So, it's nothing wrong with sharing technology, manufacturing, and production costs with a few makers. And Tag really needs to be applauded for bringing a lot of people into the hobby. And, as the old saying goes, it's not where you start that's important, it's where you finish. And life is a rich tapestry of a journey, and if your hobby includes a few Tag Heuers in your collection, so what could be possibly wrong with that? Tag Heuer makes a quality Swiss watch of a high standard and has a very high quality control procedure in place. I think it's a shame that people criticize Tag, and it's really, Tag Heuer needs to be applauded for bringing so many people into the hobby. I'm Paul Pluter. This is Paul Pluter Prestige. Please tell me what you think.